Hey everyone, I just wanted to give you a quick peek at something I've been working on lately. Um, this is a fully parametric multi-scale compound fretboard built entirely in Fusion 360. I intend to do a tutorial series here soon once I get the process a little bit more dialed in and figure out the kind of format I want to approach it with. Basically doing a speed run, building this as fast as I can. It still takes well over an hour. So there's still a lot of management to take care of. Uh, but it features a lot, which is good and bad. The more you have, the slower it goes and the easier it is to break. So um, naming conventions, as well as constraints and organization are really, really important to driving a successful parametric model. So I'm actually using a spreadsheet to drive all my parameters. I built this out in Google Spreadsheets. You can also use Excel. Essentially what you're going to do is you're going to build all your information, and then you can export that as a CSV, which is comma separated values, which can then be imported into Fusion 360. And then at the beginning of your file, you can use that to pull variables for your parameters, or as well later on you can update it and change those values. So say you pull this one in and you start building it, and then later on you make a copy of this, and then you put all a bunch of Telecaster values in here. Then you can make another one with Stratocaster, and so on and so forth. And you can easily just import these different files, and it'll automatically populate a fully parametric model slowly. Emphasis on that. So I've built the master here that it's easier to navigate. Made it all simple and pretty looking. A lot of values, a lot of calculations, and this is again where the building in a spreadsheet really shines, because a lot of stuff is easier to copy and paste and modify and increment values here. Right now for the fretboard alone, I'm sitting at over 150, about 160 parameters. So there's a lot going on. And let's go back to Fusion. So yeah, just to show you kind of what I was talking about. So once you import them all, they come in as user parameters, and then depending on what part of the project you're working on, you can set your user parameters to favorites to help you just kind of focus on what you're looking at. Let's see. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and if you've input parameters manually within this, it's not a real good time. So anyways, back to the model. So as you see, it includes fret scallops for those who like to just really get down and dirty on some fretwork. Offers binding ability. You have physical frets. These are just for show. Who doesn't love having a pretty fretboard? So we can go through, and then we can either suppress or unsuppress different features. By suppressing, you're hiding, and also it's going to help speed up calculations. Because if it's suppressed whenever you do an update, Fusion 360 will ignore those until you unsuppress them. So here you can see the binding. We can suppress the binding and then just have the fretboard without the binding. We can also suppress the scallops, and then now we have just a basic flat fretboard. We could also, we can turn the frets off. And here you see we actually have the fret cuts per usual, including to kind of mimic what a fret bit would actually do, give you a little curve there. And then what else we got? Fret ends. We can eliminate this whole build right here if you don't want to if you want to just have a nut straight at the end, you don't want to have a little pocketed nut, we can go ahead and suppress that. And eventually that will get rid of all that information. Eventually, there we go. And then we have a fall away for those who want to kind of unsuppress that. We just want a kind of a little dip toward the end of it into your fretboard if you want to adjust your action that way. Again, this is fully parametric, so here you can see we can go into our parameters. Let's find our fall away set. And here you can see it's based off the 14th fret. We can set it to maybe the 21st fret. And again, it'll compute. And now you can see that's a little bit more drastic. And again, you can set that to any really any slope you want. You can adjust the height here as well as the length. So let's go ahead and suppress that. All right, and then other features we have fret markers on top and the side. Unsuppress that. Standard fret markers for a 24 fret guitar. We also have the side markers, which again, that's just for show. Unless you got a really crazy awesome CNC, you're gonna have a really difficult time trying to machine those in with the CNC. And then we can go back to our parameters, and up here we can change the scale length for both the treble and the bass side. So if we want a standard non-multi-scale, we can change that to match. I was not kidding about it being slow. And one thing about multi-scale fretboards is you really have two different measurements. You have your angular, which is kind of what you see here, which follows the angle of the string, and then you have your more linear, which is along your axis. So is it fret outline, fret foundation? Just turn them all on. So you'll see here's a straight line along the axis, which is kind of what you base your normal fretboard off of. If you're doing a single scale, you just kind of measure from the center to the center to the center to get your fret spacing. But when you do multi-scale, you really can't do that because it's based off of your lowest bass string and your highest treble string, which now goes at an angle. So I have this, I call it a binary toggle built in. And what this will do is, actually, let's see if I can pull up the dimensions. Go back into parameters. The binary toggle does a mathematical offset to compensate for the difference between your angular and your straight fret spacing. So I have it here. Set input to 0 for standard. So if we're going to do the 25.5 and 25.5 for a non multi-scale fretboard, you'll see up here that this value will change just slightly. It's such a nuance that it probably really doesn't make any difference. So once you start getting, in your fourth and fifth decimal position, there's no way you're going to be able to have that tolerance within your machine and your own woodworking and fretwork capabilities. But it's there. Mistakes can compound, so the more you can limit them in different stages, the less likely they will get out of control later on. So again, we can go back to 1. Actually, let's just undo that. And then we can set this to, let's try that 24 just for fun. I need elevator music for this. All right, it's looking a little more drastic. And then another feature, let's go ahead and turn off all our sketches, is we have this hang fret, and what the hang fret will do is it's set to a blind fret right now, and that'll just, if you change this, much like the binary toggle earlier, it's just multiplying a 1 and a 0. Obviously, if you multiply 0, it will nullify the whole calculation. Multiply it by 1, and it will execute normally. So if we change this to 1, You'll see this will punch through the edge of the fretboard if you want your frets and your tangs to be visible. And if you really wanted to, which would kind of negate part of the process of your binding, is you'll see that it also goes through the binding, which can be fun to look at. Also, I really try to emphasize naming conventions, keeping everything clean, keeping everything organized. This might seem redundant, having your sketches named sketch, but once you go into your parameter list and you start diving into what you've created, it really helps you find what you're looking for. Because if you just have if your extrusions and your offsets and your sketches are all named fretboard, you're not going to know the difference until you start opening it all up. So I guess that's a sloppy, real fast approach to this. Still got some kinks to iron out. But hopefully within the next couple weeks, I can start publishing some videos once I figure out how I want to break it up to be concise and hopefully easy to follow. It is a lot of information, and some of it really is painfully tedious. The fret scallops are pull your hair out. But yeah, let me know what you think. Also try to work on my presentation. Who would have thought talking alone to a microphone would be so difficult? But yeah, I'm really excited about it. I've been working on this for quite a while. I think I started doing this 2 or 3 years ago, on and off. You know how life gets in the way. But yeah. So yeah, let me know what you thought. Your thoughts.